everyone, and welcome to the third annual Embassy Row Bonspiel, brought to you by Potomac Curling Club, the Grand National Curling Club of America. We expect to have hundreds of thousands of listeners to tonight's game between Eric Johnson of the Columbus Curling Club, with a hybrid team of Columbus Curling Club members and Blue Ridge Curling Club members, and a team from the Curling Club of Virginia located in Richmond. The game is already underway, and that was our first look at BJ Palsa, who grew up in Levittown, PA, moved to Richmond at the age of 7, and has been curling since 2014. Skip Eric Johnson's going to take that one to the back 12, and he's going to have a close look. He's throwing yellow rocks. And does indeed have the hammer. He's going to try to go to the edge of the house. He's trying to go in the house, which at this stage of the game implies that he's hoping for at least one miss on a hit in order to score his 2 points. The sweepers, Andy Hartzig and Mel Colley, they were on it for a while. They're off a little bit now. They're going to settle for a corner guard. Now Skip Stephen Urs of Richmond, Virginia, has a choice here. He can peel that corner guard and make it hard for Johnson to generate 2. It looks like he's opting to put 2 in the house and put pressure on the opposing skip that way. He wants to control the middle, and controlling the middle means many things in curling. Controlling the middle can mean being there when you don't have the hammer, and it generally means not being there when you don't. Giving yourself at least a 2-stone lane to draw through, or preferably even half a sheet. Scott Burke, Weiss, and BJ Palsa, they gave it their best effort. They came up just a bit short. So now Johnson surveying the field. He thought about cleaning the red house out of the back 12. But with hammer, he's opting to freeze in the back. Again, probably a questionable decision, given that the team with hammer really doesn't want to be behind T-line. It gives the opposition a much better chance to shrink the scoring area, to stack up rocks, and to get a steal, especially in the absence of any guard play. Christina Leslie steps into the hack. She is from Lincoln, Maine originally, also lived in Baltimore for quite a while. She's also a reciprocal member of the Potomac Curling Club. She plays in our Sunday afternoon pizza league. She's been playing since 2014. Paulsenberg following along. The brushes are right off. This one's sailing. It's into the 12. Is it going to hang on in the back? Probably not. It's right on through. Johnson stuck in sort of a quandary here. He's not shot rock. He's in the front 12 foot. Not necessarily a hammer strength position. In the hack right now is Andy Hartzig, originally from Rochester, Michigan. This is his 7th year in playing. Andy Hartzig was originally listed as vice skip on the team rosters, whereas Katie McCartney was listed as 2nd, but considering that was the 4th rock at the end, Andy Hartzig must be the 2nd for Team Johnson. Team Johnson's a hybrid team. They have 2 members from the Columbus Curling Club and 2 members from Blue Ridge Curling Club. The Blue Ridge Curling Club is brand new to the GNCC this season. They play out of the Main Street Arena in Charlottesville, Virginia. The Columbus Curling Club has more of a storied history. They began as a small club in Newark, Ohio. They would set up 2 sheets of arena ice. Their stones were donated by the Great Lakes Curling Association. They were actually personally owned stones by a private individual. This got the Columbus Curling Club on track, as it were. They moved to Columbus in 2002. Have been in the process of creating a dedicated ice facility, and it's my understanding, having played against a couple of these guys last year, that they were able to build that facility, and now Columbus plays on a dedicated surface. Hartzig finishing the draw, trying to bury it in. They touch the forefoot. Yellow is now sitting 2, but they are lined up for a quite easy double. Skip Stevenors calls it. Skip Stevenors had a great chance to sit down with his team, with Steven, Scott, BJ, and Christine. And he said they prefer a hit game, but they are going to try to use their experience on arena ice, where drawing it either takes some precision or some luck, depending on how you look at it. And he's going to try to play a cleaner game. Now, unfortunately, they didn't quite have the angle there. It looked like Scott Burke was a little outside the brush. Eric Johnson now forced to play a little bit unconventionally. He's got 2 rocks in. He has the hammer, but he's calling the rare center guard with hammer. At this stage in the game, it's probably not a bad idea. It's got to be very close to the house, though. Any sort of long guard gives Red the chance to draw around, sink one, and end an otherwise productive end. Now, Hartzig and Hartzig and Cauley, brushed that about as hard as they could and still came up a few feet short. So teams are still filling out the ice. This is not an immediate post-scrape draw. I was actually out there not less than 10 minutes ago, mopping, pebbling, nipping, doing all of that. The pebble was applied really to withstand the whole game, to really not flatten out. So it may be a little bit frosty right now. The pebble may be a little bit high right now, but I think conditions are going to hold up over the course of the game. Here is our first look at Steven Ors in the hack from Round Hill, Virginia, member of the Curling Club of Virginia in Richmond. They're on it early. We have Paulso, we have Alessi on the brushes. It's a big scrub. They're really getting close to center line. They're going to lose the angle. They're going to get one. They're going to spill out of the house. Johnson has a lot to think about here. He has to think about a way that he's not going to give the opposition a hit and roll under cover, leave an accidental guard up for draw. Johnson might consider going into the wings here just to minimize the risk should the shot not turn out exactly how he hopes. Yes! Eric Johnson, originally from Akron, now resides in the Columbus area. This is also his 7th year of curling, much like his top lieutenant, Andy Hartzig. He is a softball player, and believe it or not, he does competitive yak riding. He's a home brewer, and here he is. He's lining up a shot. He's going to draw to the top of the house. He's got Cauley and Hartzig on the brush. They're following along. They think they need to go. They're on for weight before they reach the halfway point. And it's a big scrub. Now they've pulled off about 5 feet from the hog line, and now they're coming into view. And this one is sailing. This one has plenty. And now they're in danger of splitting their own out the back. They will just nudge it and roll out, giving Stephen Owers the opportunity, Stephen Owers the opportunity to clean this up, give up no more than one. If Eric Johnson blanks, I don't think that's Stephen Owers' biggest concern right now. I apologize for the mispronunciation of the skip's name. The problem is the word ours in French means bear, and I somehow feel predisposed to pronouncing that way, but it is indeed Stephen Owers. And as expected, he's just going to clean it up. It's not obvious if he intends to spill out. I'm not sure he has to sit in the middle back 8, make skip Eric Johnson of Columbus. Just make a shot. Make a shot to blank. If he sticks it and you give up one, that's not a big deal. You're filling out the ice. Sweepers are on about 6 feet from the hog line. Now they come into view. They're curling a little bit over the nose. They will stay in the back 8 foot. So now Eric Johnson has a decision to make. Does he want to get on the board, get a jump, try the steal game, which is, not a poor decision in club level curling. It's very easy. Well, I shouldn't say it's very easy, but it seems like, it's just as often that you get behind the mess, you ride it out, you steal your point, then the opposition can generate a 2 with the hammer. The two is difficult. Your corner guard has to be really good with your first shot. The free guard zone has been designed such that you really get 2 chances when you're the team trying to steal to get your chess pieces in place. You really only get 1 with hammer. You have to get that corner guard up the first time. If you go in, they hit. The second time you put it up, they can peel it anyway. Judging by the ice given, I would say Eric Johnson's simply trying to draw, which is also, a decision he has to make. That he wants to understand what the speed is like out here. He threw his last draw heavy. He wants to make an adjustment, understand that, get on the board, feel good about himself. The sweepers are on about halfway down the ice. Hartzig and Cawley, they were called immediately off by the vice skip, Katie McCartney. Looks like they're going to use backing to their advantage because they're slipping from the 4. They are sitting full 8 after the tap, and that is 1 point on the board for Team Johnson. Oops, I don't know how this thing actually works. There we go. We're going to swing the scoreboard in and out. I don't quite understand why. Oh, I have to move this slider. So I don't have a producer here with me, so I'm learning this as I go. Hey, that's what it should look like. To start the second skip, Eric Johnson is playing very conservative. He's going to make skip Stephen Owers, make the first decision. He's going to try to throw to top 4. A good position to be in general, especially in attempting to force. Now, a lot of club orthodoxy is you always throw a center guard without the hammer. Now, you have to consider what exactly you're trying to do in the end. If you're trying to force a point and you throw to the top 4 and the opposition takes the bait and hits, he's played right into your hands, and they will never score more than 1. And at best they can blank and retain the hammer for the 3rd. If they were to throw a corner guard out to the edge or throw to the wings in the house or even try to hit the rock and miss, then you're able to sort of play the end inside out from what a lot of folks are taught. You have the chance to start building your castle. You can put up your guards. Now you're going to be in for it. Quite a ride. I mean, there's going to be some sort of game of chicken where can you throw 6 perfect guards better than they can throw 6 perfect peels? It's a calculation. You know your team. I talked to skip Eric Johnson immediately before the game. He said with the team he has right now, he's going to be playing a lot of draws. He's going to be really aggressive. So we're going to be looking at a real clash in style here today. So Johnson's second stone comes to rest in the 8-foot. Stephen Owers is not messing around. He told me he was going to play a hit game. He's called him Owers again. Stephen Owers is not messing around. He said he was going to play a hit game. He is. He's going to keep it clean, and I don't blame him. Be patient. Wait for the other team to make a mistake, and the opportunity to be aggressive will present itself. It will be obvious. This rock's not in view right now. It is coming to the center line. It's got decent speed, what you'd probably call a control. It's going to get over the center line. It's going to make the takeout and spill from the house, which, again, speaking of opportunities, if you're patient. Now, Eric Johnson gets to dictate the play. Stephen Owers may have wanted to stick around just for the, just in the sense that you always want to dictate play, even if it's an quote-unquote easy shot. We talk about hit and rolls a lot. We talk about rolling underneath. Well, that's generally gravy. Even as long as you stay around, as long as you're the shot rock, you make them make a decision that you impacted as opposed to their own decision. Able to make his own decision, Eric Johnson is calling for the draw around this rock from Andy Hartzig. Sweepers are walking alongside. They're getting ready. There's going to be a big scrub to finish. They are on now. Collier McCartney, big scrub, trying to finish that rock. And by finish the rock, I mean keep it moving in a slightly sideways direction. Once a rock is on a certain trajectory, you're generally not going to make it back up. Back up meaning go against the direction of the curl, unless, of course, you're using an illegal broom. And so what you try to do is you try to keep it moving in the direction it's going at that point. So you're no longer necessarily sweeping to hold a line. You're sweeping to extend a line and get yourself behind a guard. Stephen Owers, true to type, calling the hit. They are on it because it is diving to the edge. It is diving hard off the center line. They come into view here. They're going to hit the top one, but they're only going to hit a slice of it. And now Eric Johnson's pretty well set up for 2 points here. In this situation, there is quite a few options. He can throw to the edge 12 on the opposite side of where the rocks are currently positioned. He can now put up a late end corner guard with Andy Hartzig's 4th rock. He's choosing to guard the center, which with hammer can be sticky. Again, if he leaves this guard a little too high, Stephen Owers has the choice to draw around it and freeze on the yellow rock. Yeah, he may not score this end. He may not, or I'm sorry, he may not. And this is that moment where you realize you didn't realize who had hammer or not. So Skip Eric Johnson actually calling exactly the right call, guarding the rock that's touching the 4-foot as the team without hammer. The rock on the side 8 is probably not going to figure into the equation by the time the end is over. If Stephen Owers, who does have the hammer, it's a good thing I'm paying attention, has called for a hit and roll. Now he has called it outside in, which is noteworthy for a couple reasons. One, it gives the sweepers a little better chance to pull it out if it were narrow, and they are on already. 2, when you roll across the face of the rock, but what I mean by that is curl past what we would call a nose hit, the handle on the rock actually rotates. The rotation of the rock changes it, changes to the opposite rotation, and the resulting bounce, as it were, stays further up the sheet. Now, if you are curling directly into a rock, do not cross the dead center of it on a hit, and then continue to, like, with the intent of rolling behind a guard or rolling to the edge of the house, you will actually add rotation in the same direction that your rock was already traveling, and your rock will sort of bounce deeper, as it were, bounce more toward the back line of the sheet. Right now, Eric Johnson completely content to leave no reds laying around. He doesn't mind that they're creeping up the side of the sheet. I mean, each successive nose hit will eventually take these stones. The last one will eventually not be on the house, not be in the scoring area. Eric Johnson's completely fine with that. He's really playing to steal 1 point, and the strong steal play is in the top 4. Scott Burke just cleaned up that yellow, so now the dynamic of this end has changed a little bit. Scott Burke, famous at the Ardsley Curling Club, famous for lucky bounces, got just enough that time. Eric Johnson now has the opportunity to build the castle, as I like to call it. It's basically cutting off more draw lanes. When you're architecting a steel or designing a steel, you want to get up the sheet first in the center, and then you want to keep spreading your influence, as it were, like occupying more of the lane in between the 4-foot lines. This one's going to sail in the house, and I don't think that's what Eric Johnson really wanted. Stephen Hours now has another opportunity to hit and roll to second shot. There's a very thin double possibility. He's asked for the same weight from Scott Burke, what they're calling control.
Yes! Over there. Touchdown.
And Scott Burke hits it right on the head. I've asked to give a shout out to Linda Burke, Scott's mom, who I believe is watching. Is that true? She's watching the game? Not sure. There's also live tweeting going on Twitter at GetBurked, GetBurkd. So Eric Johnson takes the slow slide back to the hack to confer with his team. Again, he is going to play it completely straight. He can even afford to flop maybe 6 inches to the left as you, well, to your right as you're watching it on the screen. And it just makes Stephen Hours' bailout draw at the end of this end even harder. Eric Johnson, originally from Akron. Hartzig and Cauley following along, not even thinking about sweeping. This thing still needs to curl. It's about to come into view. It looks like it's almost exactly what they want. They may get a little more roll than they were bargaining for. No, that's absolutely perfect. Eric Johnson with a very clean control hit and flop, and now Stephen Hours really has to be thinking about more appealing than trying to roll for position advantage. Team Johnson looks pretty cohesive at this point, despite having players from Columbus and Blue Ridge. In their first game, they lost to Andy Inglis, who is on sheet A right now, playing in an A semifinal against Alan McNeil. Likewise, Team Hours ended up in this B event game, I should say. It is a B event semifinal by losing to the same Alan McNeil last evening. I was told by the team before the game that it was an absolute heartbreaker. Hours is throwing a little bit up here. As the sweepers come into view, he may miss everything, and he has. He is flashed, giving Eric Johnson really carte blanche here to tap up, guard further. He's going to put a massive amount of pressure on Hours' last shot to just even score a point, and possibly it'll be a more of a cut-down situation. These teams are in the B semis because they bounced back. They both took care of business in their second games. Team Hours beat Craig Marquardt from Potomac. They had an early lead. They found themselves up 1 with the hammer in the 8th end and sealed the deal. And Team Johnson defeated Team Sandy Burness from the Chesapeake Curling Club on the opposite side of the bay from here in Easton, Maryland. We are here in Laurel, Maryland. Final shot in the second end for Eric Johnson. Hartzig and Cauley are down early. They're down before the halfway point. They're scrubbing hard, I think more to steer, and now they're gonna hold up for a second. They're going to let this thing work to center. It's a little deeper than they would have liked, but they're going to get a little bit of a rub. The front of the house is just completely owned by Yellowstones. There's no path that I see through for Stephen Hours to throw a hit. And so now the discussion begins. This Curling Club of Virginia team is very interesting. 3 of the players came from the same Learn to Curl in 2014. They saw the game during the Sochi Olympics and decided to come on out. Second, Christine Alessi, she had always wanted to play. She had been aware of the game since 2002. She used to be a giant slalom skier and was on a ski team in Maine. And during time in a ski lodge, there were a bunch of individuals getting very excited about a game that was on in the ski lodge bar. And so she thought about it ever since, but living in Richmond really didn't have that opportunity until the club was founded in 2010. She was actually drawn in by a radio ad, so that proves to all of those USA curling clubs that all of your outreach efforts can pull somebody in. Anything you can do to promote the game. Stephen Hours has opted for the draw. This is the last shot in 2. The sweepers are down. BJ Paulson, Christine Alessi, they're up. They're back down, which is generally a good sign. It means the weight is probably pretty close. This thing is sailing in. It looks about T-line weight, which is going to be enough to cut Johnson down to 1 and keep his team in the game to fight another day. And so after 2, the score. Eric Johnson, 2. Stephen Hours, 0. Scoreboard. Oh no, it didn't work. What'd I do wrong? There we go. Scoreboard. As we organize the third end here, I'd like to talk a little bit about web streaming in general. This web streaming of curling events is fairly new. It began in 2010 in Rochester, New York. The godfather of curling web streaming, his name is Joe Calabrese. He came to the club one night and sort of rigged up his iPhone behind the warm room glass and broadcast his games to friends and family. From there, they began to cover bigger GNCC events that would have a large captive audience. They would do the Francis Dykes Memorial 5 and Under Bonspiel, for example. From there, they've built a network of affiliates and now are the official broadcasting team for the U.S. National Tournament held annually, as well as other cash spiels in Southern Ontario, and many web streaming outfits use the TESN banner and use their graphics and things that producer Brian Anderson developed for them. It's become as much a part of the Bonspiel as the broom stacking, to be honest. It's now an expectation. And here in Potomac, we have a pretty advanced setup. We have soundboard, producer's dashboard, all of which I'm still trying to get a grip on. If I had a producer, we might be able to do some of the variable view. We could show you the sweepers really doing their job as they go down the ice, but I'm by myself and I've never done this before, so bear with me. I do have a chat here, so please ask questions in the chat. I see from Melinda Carlson, any update on Sheet D, go Team Dobbs? So Michael Dobbs is playing Nick Smith. It's a all Potomac affair over on Sheet D. I'm looking over at that sheet right now. I see Dobbs' vice skip Mike Sell blocking a lot of the score. It would appear that whoever has the Red Rocks scored 2 in the first, and by the looks of things, that is Nick Smith's squad. I don't know how Dobbs and company bounced back in the second. As soon as Mike Sell moves, I can give you that answer. Oh, and it looks like they did answer with a 2 of their own. So 2-2 after 2, just getting underway in the third on Sheet D. Back to our featured game. We're on the second lead stone for Team Hours. It looks a little heavy. Eric Johnson's going to take that one right to the back. Again, with hammer, that is not a place you want to be. It gives Eric some security in calling this draw, and he calls it with confidence. And when we say, you know, be patient, wait for your opportunity, and then be aggressive in the right moments, this is exactly what we mean. Now, it's not a time to look around. They've given you an opening. Can Andy Hartzig really kind of put their foot on their neck? It'll become a frustrating game if every single end, red is looking at a lot of yellow stones out front. The score, they'll just keep bleeding them to death with ones. The game will start to get shorter and shorter. We only play 8 ends at this level. At the National Olympic levels, the games are 10 ends. Sometimes games are 12 ends. Sometimes games are 12 ends if you blank the 11th end by mistake and then have to play a 12th end. Thank you, Melinda. At least I know I can be heard, which I wasn't totally sure of because I ran in here after I nipped the ice, and it looked like everything was set up the way I talked about it. Michael Dobbs was really helpful to me in getting set up, understanding at least rudimentarily how this works. Christine in the hack again. Stephen Hours this time trying to clean up the center. He's called for the sweep fairly early. Only PJ Pulses on the brush. They've peeled the top one, which is not too bad, to be honest. You can always do a little bit more in terms of a double or a run back with the rocks that are closer to the house when thinking about peeling. I generally like to take the top rock off. Yes, Eric Johnson is going to try the draw again, and that's probably the way to go. However, the hack weight hit will be more in play for Steven. Potentially running off that top guard. Unfortunately, you know, you only have so many rocks to peel with. You generally don't want to be peeling beyond your vice stones. And he's in a position where he'd really, really like to get a 2 here and tie the game and go from there. But so far, this Columbus Blue Ridge team has played a pretty solid game, and it's been the game that Skip Eric Johnson described to me out on the ice just before we started. It was going to be a finesse game. It was going to be aggressive. He has confidence in his players and their ability to draw. And Andy Hartzig, he throws exactly the weight they're looking for. Now the hackway hit is here, and Stephen Hours has to decide exactly where he wants to end up at the end of this. And he's going for the hit and flop to the outside, which is probably the way to go. Were he to stick in there or roll under, all it would take was a well-executed corner freeze. So again, like I said earlier, shrink the scoring area, make it really, really difficult to score too. Stephen Hours has a lot of experience, believe it or not. Well, I shouldn't say believe it or not. How would I know, right? He started here in Potomac. This is a homecoming of sorts. He spent 8 years here as a junior, and then he's actually from Round Hill, Virginia, which I don't know where that is because I moved here from New York only about 1.5 years ago. But he played 8 years here at the Potomac Club as a junior, and now he took some time off. He spent 2 years at the CCVA, and in 2006 was on a team that finished 3rd in the GNCC Junior Playdowns, which is not too shabby. So Steven knows his way around the curling sheet. Here I'm reading notes and describing Steven's history, and I missed the shot. But by the looks of things, Christine's shot probably sailed wide and flashed. And so now Eric is back in the business of building castles. He will have 3rd Katie McCauley. Kind of drop one in there. You can't see it on the screen right this second. It's hanging out quite a bit, but with the new rocks that we have here at the Potomac Curling Club this season, I would expect some late snap. And so now they're going to try and drag it as far as they can and make it finish to center, but it really just never seemed to want to go. Now that brings me to another topic. A lot of clubs are getting new rocks these days. The health of the game in the United States has been enhanced immensely since 2010. Programs such as group rentals have really not just like brought clubs back from death financially, but given them a buffer to make major capital investments year after year. And we're seeing in Schenectady, who participated in the USCA's rock program, Rochester, who purchased their own. Nutmeg has brand new rocks this year, and also Potomac these new rocks and their new running surfaces are very different than the old beat-up underweight rocks that they replaced. You have to put ample rotation on the rock. You have to have a very clean release. Any sort of dump starts them curling very early. And me talking about rocks, I missed a really fine shot there by Scott Burke. He managed to hit and flop under cover. He is probably 1/5 exposed. Not a whole lot. Eric Johnson looking for something back line, maybe something to wedge in there, which is exactly the danger I talked about earlier about the roll in. Is, you know, a well-placed draw is going to make it really hard for Steven to generate two. However, Katie McCartney wide again. Now they're looking at a possible promote play on the previous stone she threw. They have the angle almost exactly right.
Yes! Yes!
You know, and at the worst, they've got some insurance against a bigger end. They've kind of taken that red rock that's on the back line out of the scoring equation for the time being. I doubt that's a rock that Steven's ever going to try to go after. Steven's going to try to get to the wings. Not a bad idea. Now, the only danger here, also because he has sort of a de facto yellow corner guard that you see on the right side of your screen. He just has to be careful that this thing doesn't dive too hard off the center line and end up, you know, a little too far close to the boundary. This doesn't look like it's the case. It's only just getting off the center line, about 3 to 4 feet before the hog. Now the the sweepers come into view. They're going to try to get it as far as they can. They're going to come up short of a scoring rock, but that's in a place where it can be promoted. Again, the issue is there are only 2 rocks left in the end for Steven Hours, and he's going to want to be attacking the 4-foot with those rocks to try and generate a 2 for himself. Eric Johnson keeping up the aggressive theme. He's looking at the thin hit. Now, this can be made with these new rocks. The drawback is you have to be a little more technically sound. You have to have a better release, but if you do everything correctly, you can get a lot of late action. You can get around a guard at really board weight, maybe even slightly more than board weight. They're giving an awful lot of ice, so I would expect him only to throw something along the lines of backline to hack, and that's really all he needs to do. If he can push the red behind tee, preferably to back 8, that's about as far as he needs to move it. If he can do that and sit in front, the steal is back on. He'll be in a solid 8-foot position. He might be peeking out a little bit, but again, this is keeping with the theme that Skip Eric Johnson told me about on the ice beforehand, that he was going to be aggressive. He has confidence in his team to play a precision game. The rock's away. You don't see the sweepers. They aren't doing anything, and now they're, as soon as I say that, they are on a little bit before halfway. Andy Hartzig really putting his weight on the brush. They are just by the top guard. They are going to take that rock out, as I said, but they're going to flop exposed to the side 8, which gives Steven Hours the ability to hit and roll outside. And hit. Well, it's looking like the best he'll do is generate a skips 2. That yellow rock at the top of the house is guarded sufficiently by the center guard. This is exactly what Steven's thinking, but again, the danger going forward will be, even if he makes it, a really well-placed draw by Eric Johnson can kind of spoil all the hard work that they've done this end and spoil his chance at getting back tied even at 2 after 3. Steven Hours with the hand alignment. I like that. I like to stand in the hack, make sure my hack toe is really pointing along the line of delivery, kind of draw it all the way in, make sure that hack knee is also pointing in the line of delivery. The stone's away, the sweepers are on, a little more than halfway down the sheet. They're over the hard line, they're scrubbing hard. It looks like they are gonna just stick it, just completely stuff it nose. They did clean that red off the back. That was really not going to be a scoring rock anyway this end. They really were trying to generate this through either rolling. They were trying to roll out. They probably could have rolled in and got away with it, assuming Eric Johnson didn't make a perfect draw, but where they're sitting right now, I think Eric Johnson has little option but to clean this up. Stephen Hours is not, I mean, he still has the option. Well, no, he will not have the option to blank at all. This will put the force on to hit and really roll anywhere in the house. Stephen Hours will probably be happy to take a point if the opportunity presents itself, but a well-placed roll by Eric Johnson puts Stephen Hours in a real precarious position. He hasn't thrown many draws so far this game. He'll be asked to beat, well, he'll be asked to get full 8 or slightly better on a cold draw. I just saw your comment, Gina. I'm going to hang on until after this shot is over. He makes the hit, gets a slight roll, probably not all, definitely not all the roll he wanted. And Steven's going to try to take his point. To answer your question, Gina, the score on the sheet to the left of Hours Johnson. So to the left of where the skips are on sheet A would be Alan McNeil versus, what do I got here? Andy Inglis. I see 1 in the first for Alan. I see another point in the second. So it would appear he's up 2-0. They are toward the end of the third end. Alan is about to throw his number 7 stone of that end. Looks like he's trying to sink a draw behind a kind of a mess in front of the house. He already sits 2 as far as I can tell. Stephen Hours' rock is away. They need it to work back a little bit. You can't quite see it yet. Here it comes. It's starting to curl, but it's very gradual. It looks like he's going to spill and give up another point to Eric Johnson. So after 3, Eric Johnson and his Columbus Blue Ridge hybrid are ahead 3-0. So now you see the correct scoreboard. Sorry about all that. And joining me now on this broadcast is Craig Marquardt. Craig is a PCC board member. Craig is the PCC board member most in charge of the ice. Is that correct, Craig?
That is totally correct. Yes, today we've been trying to have our best ice possible.
And they say that despite the fact that they allowed me to mop, pebble, and nip before this draw.
Well, sometimes we have to train some people.
Full disclosure,
You have a long history of ice maintenance, don't you?
I think I did a pretty decent job. I've run a scraper before. As I said at the outset of the broadcast, we used a little bit cooler water today, a little bit larger aperture to try and give them some base that would hold up for the full 8 ends. It was a little frosty in the first end, we could tell, but so far we haven't seen any odd torquing on flat spots or anything like that. We're only in the 4th end, but my biggest concern is that sliding path holds up, so that when they're coming home, they're.
That's my biggest concern too. No, as far as I can tell, you drive a mean scraper. You are a scraper maniac.
Well, I don't like to stop. I get the hacks out of there and then we go.
Yeah.
And
I've seen with the hacks in, and you still go.
So again, we're. Eric Johnson's still going to play the steal game. Like he has the option here to go to the 4-foot and put more pressure on Steven that way in the sense of, we're already here. You're going to have to start doubling us out and to generate points. Steven does have a corner guard in a fairly decent spot. I would call it a little deep. This year at Potomac Curling Club, and I'm not sure how visible they are on the video stream, but we have poker chips embedded in the ice, and these are, I guess you could say, ideal corner guard position. They are almost on the 8-foot, 12-foot line. They are what we would call a 2 position, about halfway between the hot line and the house. They're for the mixed doubles game.
But I mean, they're for the power play and mixed doubles, which is kind of designed to be a perfect guard, yeah?
And it's my understanding of mixed doubles is that pre-placed rocks went in a center guard position in the back of the button, but I've also understood that the rules have changed a little bit. Can you explain the power play and how often you're allowed to use it?
I think you can use it just once per match.
Each team.
Each team gets 1 power play, yes. But I actually haven't. I've watched doubles maybe twice in my life.
Steven is...
But that normally the 2 of the rocks are set up in the center guard and button position, and when you invoke your power play, then they're moved over to the left or the right.
Right, and I think the idea was that you have more of a natural hammer situation. You get to choose at once. When I've watched mixed doubles, there's a large stack up on that rock that's put on the button. Partially because you're not allowed to do any sort of takeout. It's not the free guard zone where you're not allowed to hit rocks in front of the house until the 5th rock, but you're not allowed to hit anything. And so it becomes a big kind of car crash. And
it does, yeah. For myself, doubles, I feel like the strategy zone is a little more limited for doubles than it is for normal curling.
Right, and the roles as defined, you're allowed to switch whether you throw the 1st and 5th rock or the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, but the way it had been shaping up is that the female players were generally throwing the 1st and 5th for finesse, and when the male player was finally allowed to hit on rock 3, then they would just sort of throw a bomb into the pile and jiggle things around and see where it all landed. So like it wasn't as strategic per se, and there's also the element where you don't get much sweeping benefit.
Right. Looks like there's going to be a crash here.
Christine Alessi a little tight. It works. It functions as a peel for Steven, and he still has his corner guard. Now, Eric Johnson could consider here, if he really wanted to make it hard for Steven to hide, he can consider peeling that corner guard, but he's going hard directly for this steal. And he's not interested in forcing one. He wants to make it 4-0 halfway through the game.
That's it. Done. We can mail this end in.
Andy Hartzik potentially questioning from the other end. Eric's thinking about it, but no, he is pretty confident. This is how he wants to do it, and this is what he told me before the game. He said, we are going to play an aggressive game. I have confidence in my team's ability to draw.
Little pregame interviewing, I see.
I did.
A little prep work.
I spoke to everybody. Andy Hartzik, he didn't tell me much. He did tell me that he told me he did not play other sports. He asked if just drinking could be considered a sport.
Well, there is arm motion there.
I did mention that his skip was a home brewer, but apparently all Andy likes to do is consume, and that's fine. That is within the spirit of curling.
It is. Went over curling a little bit there.
Comment from Melinda Carlson. Those are poker chips. We can see them on the screen. Yeah, right. They on the screen they look kind of just dirty, right?
Yeah, we actually had some problem with those poker chips because they wanted to float up, and after we sunk them in, they would still kind of bubble up a little bit.
We have a comment from Joe Calabrese in Fairport, New York. He says, is that Bob Williams? Yes, indeed. And also another comment from Joe Calabrese. He says, what's the most interesting thing you've ever seen at a bonspiel? The most interesting thing I've ever seen at a bonspiel, one time I went to Richmond Hill, Ontario, which is just north of Toronto, and in between draws, it was a one-day spiel, and you would play 2 games and play really for points and more or less work with your team. In between draws, they set up something called the fish races. This is nothing like the boat races that many of you GNCC fans have fallen victim to over the years. The fish races consisted of 4 lengths of rain gutter placed on a table in the warm room. At the side of the table would be a guy who lorded over a plastic bin full of minnows, actual fish.
Real fish.
Real
live
fish. And you paid $2 Canadian. You put a toonie in the pot to enter this event. And it was pretty much expected that everybody would do it. And when your team was called up, the 4 players would go and take a look into the fish bucket, decide which ones look particularly ornery or speedy. and choose your fish. Now, they would scoop it out with a net, put it into a Tim Hortons paper coffee cup, and when told to go, all 4 members of the team would get up to their respective rain gutters and drop their fish in the water. And the fish that swam to the other end first was the winner. And you would move on to the next round. And in the next round, you would play guys, well, it wasn't all men's scale, it happened to be. You would play guys from other teams, other clubs, and there was a hierarchy to it, a bracket, if you will. I hung around.
Did you keep the same fish, though? Like, that was my
so
fish.
that's a great question. You have to put your fish back immediately after the race, and so you're never totally sure you're going to get the same fish for the next round. Some guys might shake the cup a little bit to try and get the fish excited, but
could you bait them? Could you?
You really couldn't do much once they're in the water. Sometimes they would swim halfway down and turn around, and that was kind of a bummer. I managed to hang around in the A event of the fish race for quite a while. I think I lost in the A semi of the fish race. But short story or long story, it's been a long story. The winner of the final race would take home the pot. So it was a very, very complicated way to hold a raffle. And that's the most interesting thing I have ever seen at a bonspiel.
Wow.
So back to the action. Andy Hartzig and Mel Cawley are hammering a draw from Katie McCartney, and they're just going to come up short. You can probably see them at the bottom of your screen, and that one just didn't quite make it. So, Craig, you are a skip in this bonspiel.
I am, yes. I'll be playing later on this evening, the final draw for this evening.
And what event?
The curling event.
The C?
I'm not actually sure. All I know is we're not 3 and out.
And
maybe is that the E event?
The goal of any bonspiel is to keep people here all the way through Saturday. They are designed to keep people here and make use of that temporary liquor license we have for the weekend.
Exactly. And I'm really glad we had Korean food tonight. It was delicious.
And that is the theme of this weekend's bonspiel. This is the 3rd Embassy Row bonspiel. It's held at this time of year, every year.
Yes.
Previous years, the themes were Italy. Last year's was Germany, and more specifically Bavaria. This year it is South Korea. It's organized by Spencer Stevens, who is a Korean, I don't believe he's a Korean national. He served in the U.S. Navy, but he is an adoptee.
He is ethnically Korean.
Right.
Yeah,
that is correct.
Yeah.
He is the second on my Sunday night team and a pretty good hitter. A fine curler.
A fine curler. And we also, I should say, we have sponsors in our ice sponsors, and we have sponsors here tonight. Buffalo Wild Wings. They purchased a sponsorship banner, which was in the ice, and they've come out to see exactly what curling is all about.
Other sponsors of the Potomac Curling Club include Barantes Tour and Travel, the Moyer team, Maryland Realtor,
who are actually members of the club too.
Indeed, both curlers, Todd Moyer and his wife. If you want to buy a ridiculously expensive house in Maryland, make it a Moyer. There's Visionist Incorporated, also a sponsor. Geosyntech Consultants and Red Hot and Blue Restaurant on Main Street in Laurel.
Red Hot and Blue, their barbecue, that's their name to fame. And we are regular partakers of Red Hot and Blue barbecue. Where are we at here?
All right, back to the action.
Yeah.
Skip Eric Johnson has his arm around Vice Katie McCartney, and it's blocking a lot of my view. I see Vice Skip Scott Burke.
There's a lot of hugging going on, is really what's happening.
We don't have a high vantage point here like many curling clubs. It would appear nothing else is in the house.
Just yellow. Yeah, can see from the overhead cam.
Yeah, okay. So there's a yellow on the side. It looks like they're coming at it with something control, maybe slightly down from control. They're going to play chicken with that corner guard. They may think about going. They are on just off the screen about 15 feet before the hog line. They're on hard. BJ Palka really scrubbing. They've peeled their own corner.
But they may roll in.
And they do roll in. They roll into a position that looks full 8 and is probably shot.
Probably more than they were hoping for.
Right. And it's completely guarded by a combination of yellow in the 4-foot lane and red at a more of a traditional corner guard position. Eric Johnson has a decision to make here. I mean, there's still a pretty wide open out-turn draw. This is rock 8, I believe, the end, because we were a little off track there for a while.
There's 2 more rocks to go in this end.
Yep, and he's exactly as I thought. And you know, Eric is not afraid to draw. And I was told once by a really wise man, his name is Randy Fredlin, he said, if you want to skip, you've got to be able to draw the 4-foot. You've got to be able to either make a big shot for your team to score extra points or make a big shot for your team when they're not doing their best.
So I have not been the best skip tonight or yesterday.
Your 4-foot game is not
no, well,
tops in the tournament?
I would say that my second half of the game is usually better than my first half, which is usually not the case. But I was hitting my shots the second half of the game where I needed to. Actually, I think I'll be in the featured sheet for the late game, so you see me out there.
And I will be.
You're going to call the game?
One of these headsets. I believe Alan McNeil will be primary, but I will be back with you. Completely out of stories by then, I'm sure. An update on sheet D for Melinda Carlson. Let's stick with the feature sheet for 1 second. Eric Johnson, originally from Akron, plays out of the Columbus Curling Club in Columbus, Ohio.
Also where the Knights of Columbus are from.
I didn't know that.
No, I don't think that's true at all.
It's true today. Hartzik and Collier are killing it, but this looks like it's either going to come up a little light or veer a little too far. They're on the yellow guard, as you can see. So not a lot has really changed here for Stephen Hours. It just looks like a pretty direct draw for 2. He's going to need full 8-foot.
There is backing there they could wick off of if they need to.
Well, they can wick. I mean, they can't really use it as backing per se, or it won't be shot. Or they run the risk of tapping it to slightly better. I mean, it's not, that yellow stone is not second shot by a lot. Probably not something they want to mess around with.
Yeah.
And as the CCVA people told me today, the biggest difference in this game is they can call draw shots. When they play on the arena ice, you put the broom on the center line and the rock may end up on the next sheet. There's really no rhyme or reason to it. In fact, they asked me, they said, could you skate around or go out there with an ice pick or dig some fishing holes or something like that to make it a little bit more like home. I think they're kind of overwhelmed a little bit by the speed of it. They've said that you really, really have to push out of the hack to get rocks in play at CCVA, and we're seeing it again here. It looks like
that one just sort of hung out there, though. Yep.
So out it goes. It'll be 1. Stephen Hours is on the board. CCVA is on the board. It's 3-1 after 4 here at the Potomac Curling Club at the Embassy Row, Bonspiel.
Yes.
We're back with fifth end action here in this feature game between Eric Johnson of Columbus with his Blue Ridge Curling Club sweepers out of Charlottesville, Virginia, taking on the Richmond team skip by Stephen Hours.
Fifth end action. It's the best kind of action.
Usually you pay double.
Yeah. But then you pay triple for the sixth end action. So it maybe wait.
For the first time in the game, I believe. No, that may not be correct. Eric Johnson may have had the hammer in the first. But for the first time in a while anyway, Stephen Hours is operating out of the steal position. And it would appear that his first attempt at the center guard over curled. But the beauty of the free guard zone is he does get another. And as I talked about earlier, the free guard zone really is designed to give the team that is losing the chance to come back. You get 2 chances to put up that center guard, whereas if you have the hammer and you really want a 2 in a pretty evenly matched game, if you don't get that first corner guard up, you don't get another chance. They'll either hit your rock out of the house, and if you put up the second corner guard, they have carte blanche to peel it at that point.
Right. I had understood that for elite curling, they were going to go to the fifth rock would also be free guard zone. Is
right.
that the case?
I've heard that. I think they've tried it out in some Grand Slam events.
Right.
I'm not totally sure how I feel about it. I like the fact that there's some amount of penalty for the hammer team has to execute a little bit better to earn that bonus. I mean, it is a bonus in and of itself to throw the last rock, much like in baseball, it's better to bat last.
Intense game of Hungry Hippo or something here.
They're screaming on either side of us. There are board games going on in the warm room, and there seemed to be, during that shot, an awful lot of screaming coming from Sheet C. I don't know how well folks at home hear the audio balance. I believe there's an on-ice microphone somewhere. I don't know that it's necessarily directed toward our sheet.
No, they're right above our sheet, actually. I don't know. Behind the scenes here, there's these wooden panels. That's where the microphones are. So close to our sheet.
So that's inside information from a longtime Potomac curler.
Yes, very inside. Long time, 4 years.
Right, which is two more years than I've played her.
Nice. One day, son, you will be a long-time member. I think they're just guarding up this the red rock in the house.
All the way.
Still leaves it pretty wide open, though, I would say. Hard to tell from this angle.
Yeah, it looks like the Red Rock is totally in danger of being hit by an out-turn hit. Eric Johnson, he's talking about rolling either way. In his situation, I would probably roll outside. Even if someone from the CCVA team were to sink a draw in the forefoot, I think that center guard is long enough, and with our new rocks and the kind of action you can get on them throwing even at board or control weight, nothing's really safe on the forefoot or on the button at this point. So
I haven't quite mastered the art of controlling these rocks yet. They're quite sensitive if you don't give enough handle.
Andy Hartzig, he looks like he's given it quite a bit of handle. I think we've already got more than a rotation and a half halfway down the sheet. The sweepers are completely off it. Here they come into frame.
Oh, it's going to be a beautiful hit.
They're not going to get much roll on it. They almost got all the way back to the nose.
Could have been on that sweeping-wise.
But fundamentally, as long as you make the shot first and sit shot, or even in this instance too, you are going to make the other team make a shot to beat you. The other team will have to do something superlative and get an even better roll than the roll that they've gotten. Joe Calabrese from Fairport, New York asks, have you seen any directional sweeping? No, I haven't. In fact, I've seen some questionable starting alignment. There's a lot of theory about sweeping these days. I'm not sure I buy all of it. But I do believe that you should always set up your player closer to the rock, he or she who is sweeping opposite the direction of the curl, in order to hold line, which is usually the most common emergency situation.
Sure.
I also haven't seen much in the way of equipment that might be deemed illegal.
So I see a few hardline brushes around, like the
But-
one right in front of us.
But it has a yellow broom head, so it's hard to say whether or not that is the Oxford 420D that is now approved for elite play.
It's possible, I suppose. It doesn't have the insert or not, right?
Right, and I see some EQ heads out there, which are probably filled with foil, which is also forbidden at this point. Balance Plus, I'm told, is the science of curling. On their brooms,
It says it.
they have it written in quotation marks, believe it or not. So we're not totally sure that it's true. It might be facetious. They also say they're as good as gold on their products.
Actually, there is a science of curling. There are research groups in Canada and Sweden who are actively looking at the materials properties of how curling rocks move.
Indeed, and to speak more seriously about directional sweeping and new brush technology, the World Curling Federation actually commissioned a branch of the Canadian national government to perform tests in Brockville, Ontario, which is in the Thousand Islands. They brought together a lot of the elite level players. This was, the way I understand it, brought about because the elite level players wanted there to be not just a balance between your throwing ability and your ability to guide the rock with a brush, but really they wanted it restored to something more resembling 80-20, where those who go to the club, put in the time, work on their deliveries, are given the most benefit, and you're not allowed to just straddle a rock with a hair broom and direct which way you want it to go.
Right. There was a conscious effort to make it more in the hands of the deliverer and less in the sweeper.
Right, and sweeping will still do something, but now to a certain extent the equipment is standardized. There are all three major, well, I shouldn't say all three, there's Asham, there's Olsen, but Gold Line, Balance Plus, and Hardline all use the new nylon 420D, or the Oxford 420D.
I mean, that's a choice, especially for club curlers. It's a choice.
It is still a choice for club curlers. At the elite level, you can get this material from any of these companies. Now, Hardline has a little bit different broom head shape. Balance Plus and Gold Line have the traditional oval. However, I felt some of Hunter Clausen's material. Hunter Clausen is the top Potomac curler who represents our club and really our region at nationals every year. And the Balance Plus new broom head, the foam behind that fabric is, I guess, for lack of a better word, squishy. You can really like sink into the ice, whereas the Gold Line head is much firmer, and I'm told that they are not regulating foam in any way. It remains to be seen exactly what difference that will make. I've also heard that the color actually does matter. It does actually have to be yellow as part of the, in the executive summary released by Statistics Canada and the World Curling Federation. They tried different colors.
What?
And it had different effect on the ice in terms of warming the ice, different temperatures. They also said that foil was not a major issue in larger broom heads, but when they got down to the smaller rectangles, such as the Lightspeed, the foil had the effects that they're trying to avoid. And the effects they're trying to avoid are making a rock fall on purpose, or making a rock that's wide and heavy come all the way back with no penalty and still, make the takeout that you were trying to make.
But I'm surprised that it's just the color, unless maybe it's more like the color represents a different manufacturing process, and they just colored it for marketing reasons.
Right. You want to take the update on Sheet A?
Sheet A. Sheet A is McNeil versus Ingles, and right now they're in their, I want to say they're in their fifth end? Is that right? They've only hung scores for the third end, though. And it's 3-0 in favor of McNeil's team. Ingles has not hung a score yet.
Back to feature sheet action. Eric Johnson's third is standing in the hat, Katie McCartney. Yellow is all over the house. Eric Johnson appears to be plugging up the middle, which, normally you'd think not such a great plan. I don't see, though, if he does it, exactly how Stephen Nowers gets into the house in a strong position.
I mean, that's a a less desirable strategy at the start of the end.
Certainly, but I mean this rock comes to rest just off of center, but not very deep in play. I think Steven has a get out of jail card here. He's got this rock on the side four. He's looking at it. He's also got a straight draw, and being the steel team, you know, he wants the interference in the center. He's talking with Vice Scott Burke about that direct draw to 4 foot. Manufacture it yourself. Carry the team, as we talked about. Randy Fredlin.
Actually, most of the game's pretty well matched. No blowouts yet after 4 ends.
It would appear completely tied on sheet D, 4-4 between Nick Smith and
Courtney Shaw.
Michael Dobbs. No, I think Courtney and Nick are on the same team.
I see.
Yep. It is the pretty classic Michael Dobbs lineup with Mike Sell, J.R. Groves, and the guy I don't know.
Neither do I. Johnny Random.
Steven Hours going for it, going for the draw. He has nice rotation. It's about halfway around, halfway down the ice. Sweepers on a little bit beyond the junior houses. We have junior houses on sheet C and D here at Potomac to exactly halfway for the younger kids to play with.
Made it around the guard, but maybe a little too
both guards. He's definitely too deep.
Heavy. Nothing to back up on there.
No, it was one of those things where he probably could have used a little more ice to throw it a little lighter, because he didn't miss the interference by a ton. Now Eric Johnson has the opportunity to really close off everything. Except, you know, the desperation in-off on the side 12, it still exists. But Mark Carlson is the second for Team Top. Sorry, Melinda. I have played against Mark, and he's just, I don't know, for whatever reason, can't remember, but like not as I mean, JR's on the board, Michael's on the board. I just know them better. I apologize.
We need to recruit Mark Carlson for the board. Problem solved. It's a strategy that helped me finish my last game. Plug up with guards, plug up the house with guards. And it worked. Get that jewel inside the house and then keep everybody else out.
So Mark Carlson, apparently a Swiss curler for 2 seasons. Do you know exactly where, Melinda? As Eric Johnson delivers his second to last stone of this 5th end. Hartzig and Colley on really early. They're really trying to stay off the high center guard. They're going to. Now it's a matter of don't over curl, but I think they're putting it in a decent spot. They may have over curled just a little.
I think that's the
probably
back yellow is quite visible there.
Back yellow is visible. That's probably enough to dissuade Steven Hours from trying that same draw. I mean, he's thinking about it, but now it's a matter of, can you be wide enough when you get over the hog line to just miss the red and then just miss the yellow, because you'll be really, traversing laterally across the sheet at that point.
It's quite a traverse.
It's all about traversal. If you don't have good traversal, you don't have good curling.
Then you get reversal.
and nobody wants to see that.
No, you do not.
Wow, that must have been a sight. Open air curling in the Alps. It reminds me of the Banff Curling Club in Alberta, where along the side of the ice shed is mostly glass, so that you can look into the immediate Canadian Rockies just out the window.
Sounds beautiful.
It looks like Steven's going to go inside out at that rock on the side 4. He's going to try to thread the needle with something probably approaching control weight.
I think that's the only way you can come at it. The other way is there's too much other stuff in the way.
Yeah, I mean, there's something of a look at the one on the other side of the 4 foot. I'm not it certainly wouldn't get you shot, but it might mitigate the damage a little bit here. I mean, to some extent, Eric Johnson has made it hard for him to do anything with his hammer, regardless of the result of this shot. He hasn't really left himself his draw lane or even the half a sheet that he might need. Stephen Hours' rock is away. You can't see it. It is still to the left of center. Now it is cross center. The sweepers haven't touched it at all.
Made it through the guards.
Made it through the first guard, but he clips the second one. He really never...
oh, dear.
He never really got over to where he needed to get in terms of line. He sort of slid straight up out of the hack. He probably needed to adjust that a little bit and let it go right on center line.
That is a 5-ender. They're all just standing around dumbfounded. Oh, there's one more.
That's right. There's
one more yellow rock.
This is that rock I talked about where Eric Johnson wouldn't have anything really obvious to do, even if the shot was made by Steven. I mean, there's still the out-turn draw. You probably can avoid the red. I think they're going to
I mean, why mess up a good thing, though?
Yeah. I mean, that's a draw. You've only got to touch paint. The only danger out there is to hang a little bit wide and tap the red, and I think even if you tap it, you still not get 4. I mean, but it doesn't look like he's going for the 6. We'll see which way he sets up the handle in the hack. This may be just throw the wall and take your 5.
I almost feel like they just threw this, the guard shot, his last shot. That shot is now open again.
Yeah, well, that's what I was talking about, where the only risk was the red
that's
almost on the house.
Yes.
I would throw that. I would throw that out-turn draw because it's up the middle of the sheet. The speed a little bit better. He's not throwing it away. He is going to try the draw way around the outside.
Almost feels like it's just see what we get.
He's not terribly far off the 4-foot line.
But
It brings that red corner guard into play, and I'd be really worried about tapping that up.
Yeah.
And that's where they're headed.
That's what's happening.
Here they come into view. Oh, no.
Ah.
They have tapped the red up. They're cutting them down. They're now down to 2 points. They took a 5, turned it into a 2.
That's
Eric Johnson hangs his head, his arm around the opposing skip, something you don't see too often. They're standing at center ice. You can't see them. Everybody on the sheet is either laughing or crying. And this game is going to continue on because now it's only 5-1 Eric Johnson and not 8-1.
This is like in soccer where they score an own goal, right?
Well, it's a good thing Eric Johnson is not Colombian because when he returned to his homeland, he might be shot.
Oh, my God. Please, no.
I feel like didn't that happen like the 94 World Cup? Somebody scored an own goal, they went home, and they were essentially criminalized.
That sounds, I mean, I think people are very passionate about soccer, so it probably has happened.
Eric Johnson has to really just shake that off now. He's still in, serious control of this game. He's doing the smart thing here. He's going right to the 4-foot. He doesn't need a guard at this point. Up 3 or more, I never like a guard. He's got good body language. His team sees he's a leader. He understands he messed up. He can laugh about it. He can move on. The worst thing you can do in this situation is get angry.
Freeze up.
Yeah, snipe at your teammate, throw a broom, stand with your hands on your hips.
I mean, most of the bad shots in my game were my own shots, so I couldn't get angry at anybody else but myself.
In that instance, it's best to just burn with the intensity of a million suns. That's kind of how I treat skipping. Skipping is a mental exercise.
It is. You have to sort of shake off some of that.
Internalize it, set your own self on fire for 10 seconds, and then get in the hack next time. It's like you can have a game where you played great, and if you chunk your last 2 shots at the 8th end, they're going to stay with you until the next night you show up at the club and get in the hack. Whereas you could have a pretty terrible game. Eric Johnson's looking at me. He needs a hug, I think, right now. But, I mean, you could have a pretty marginal game, and if you nail your last 2 shots, rise above whatever was bothering you, keep your head clear, you feel good about going into the next game. Eric's going to have plenty more curling shots in his career.
Yeah, don't write him off yet.
Right. I don't think he's going to quit the game after this. It was a pretty egregious error, but
I did see someone taking a photo of the 5-ender before it turned into a 2-ender, so we relive that glory.
Stephen Hours attempted a corner guard. He gave what I thought was reasonable ice, but it really just never came over for him. And even at the end of the shot, the handle seemed to be, non-existent, and they were skidding more than curling. But I think it was the weight there. They didn't get that perfect 2 up by the poker chip, the pop poker chip.
What?
Pop poker chip, pop poker chip.
Sweepers are right off on this one.
Right, they want it in the house again. Pretty good strategy. I mean, it's incumbent on Stephen Hours to get rocks in good positions in the wings and in the house. I mean, Eric probably could have had that in top 4 as well, and it wouldn't have mattered, because what it would take is not just a couple of great draws by the CCVA team, but also a double takeout at some point in the end. BJ Paulsa, born in Levittown, PA, from Bucks County. Moved to Richmond, been playing since 2014. Her first rock? No, second rock. She is the lead. Her second rock in N number 6.
But does that mean she hasn't actually played in Bucks County? There's a curling club
No, she has
there
not
now.
played in Bucks County. She said she moved to Richmond when 7 years old and only started in 2014 after a Learn to Curl event in which she participated with teammates Scott Burke and Christina Lessie. They were all part of the same event.
Nice. Shide has finally hung more scores. They're up to their 6th end. It's 3 points McNeil, 2 for Ingalls.
And it looks like McNeil retains the hammer. The last end was a steal, so Allen will have the hammer up 1 in the 6th, which is really not a bad place to be, given that we only play 8 here in club curling.
Depends on the timing, too. This is a timed event.
True. So how long do they have?
I actually don't know, and we were caught off guard in our last game where they just ring the bell and then that's your last end. You don't have a chance to finish and play one more.
Can they have more time if the ice crew is especially fast?
I would like to say yes.
The last Red Rock promoted yellow to the 12-foot. Probably not the end of the world for either skip here. Red is starting to build something on half the sheet. He has his places to flop that will be covered on side 4, which is, not the best, but not bad, as long as he can keep that right side of the sheet. I wanted to say left, but as you're looking at it, the right side. This yellow center guard is going to be a thorn in his side.
Yeah,
for the rest of the end. I mean, he has to consider peeling, but as we've talked about in earlier ends, you only have so many chances to peel and still score multiple points. The other team really is dictating the action at that point, but of course guards are a difficult shot at club level. It's hard to place the broom in the right spot, perfectly judge the weight, not over curl, not under curl.
They're going for a tap, but I'm maybe around the outside. It's really hanging out there.
It's really coming off the sideline, but I think as it's running out of steam and it isn't spinning a whole lot.
If you don't want to sweep that and keep your tap-up option available.
It's kind of a corner guard that came from the outside, which is somewhat different from what we've seen the way the ice has been behaving in this game.
That's the 1950s classic horror movie, too. It came from the outside.
Corner guard from the outside.
Yeah.
Part 2.
Part 2. It's Japanese horror movie, yeah.
Eric Johnson back in the business of castle building, although this has the kind of weight on it that you would think he was calling some sort of tap. He's calling right off of the sweepers. It looks like he's going to get some sort of tap rub action. Actually, it's coming into view right now. It's slowing down quite a bit compared to what it looked like out of his hand. It takes away some of those promote opportunities to some degree. I mean, you can still go yellow to red, but
it's always a more difficult shot.
That's right. This is not, in fact, the Briar. This is not the Scotties. This is not the U.S. Nationals. This is the Embassy Row Bonspiel, the 3rd annual Embassy Row Bonspiel from the Potomac Curling Club.
Sponsored by Scotties. No, we're not. We would entertain that sponsorship, though.
No, we are sponsored by Buffalo Wild Wings. What is it? Beer Wing Sports?
Beer, wings, and sports.
Stephen Howard effectively gets a peel out of this. He runs back and touches a lot of rocks, but at the end of the day, the yellow steel position is still extremely strong. Eric Johnson here, he's thinking, I think, about coming a little deeper and using those guards, but at the end of it, he's going to throw another guard. Now, if this thing were to be a little heavy and sail into the top 12, I think he would take that too. I would definitely take it. I mean, you're talking about max pressure end here. If you frustrate CCVA enough and are sitting in a position to steal one, but their last desperation shot goes awry, we could be talking about handshakes in about 15 minutes.
There is a pocket for Red to draw into, so he definitely wants to frustrate that.
Yeah, certainly close that off, but I guess what I'm saying is it's not a bad idea to add a little juice to the situation, right? Sit 3 and make the skip a little more nervous.
I think this will be just a guard.
No, it is. Yeah, it's definitely not going to the 12-foot after I pontificated about that for 2 to 3 minutes. They're pretty short, but a nice finishing sweep by Andy Hartzig in that green and white hardline broom. Gets it into a position where I don't see a really useful draw here for Stephen Howard. I think he's got to either, he's looking at the hit going through this port. It's an option. I don't see how he rolls either way with it. I mean, it'll be the same exact shot for Katie McCartney coming up. I mean, I suppose if he is either wide or narrow, it really doesn't matter. He is going to end up with some sort of peel that opens up the center a little bit more.
Yeah, I would have thought anything that opens up the center, but it's. I think this is
definitely wide. They're going to get that yellow on the side. They might get 2. They've touched 2. They've moved 1 out of the way, but they've pushed another one into the 4-foot. But the good news, again, is it's behind T. They have a pocket. Unfortunately, you know, being behind T without hammer is not the death penalty that it is with. Eric Johnson says, you know, yeah, I've got those in the back 8. If they draw 2 of them, I stack another one right on top. I shrink the scoring area on them. How are they going to generate 2 with only the button to work with? He's opting to just guard up the entire situation, which is probably okay. I mean, he's doing it in a way that he'll sit for.
But can you really guard up the entire situation? It's just
not all of it, but you can guard
just to the side of center. Is
enough
that
to not give up 2. Like I don't think Eric Johnson's really concerned. Well, there's very little rotation on this rock. The sweepers are going hard, but there's not a whole lot they can do about it. It's going to be moving sideways at that weight and with that rotation at the end. To finish my thought, I think you know, Eric doesn't necessarily care if he gives up a point here and takes the hammer up 3 going into the 7th end. Here comes Vice Scott Burke, and I've got a story to tell about Scott Burke that I was given before the game. Scott Burke is apparently the king of lucky bounces. Scott Burke, when all else fails, throws a bomb into the pile, and 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 rocks move, and somehow his color squirts to the 4-foot, and so he's well known for that. And he developed at a 500 Bonspiel in Ardsley in downstate New York on the Hudson near Dobbs Ferry, a fan club of sorts, a group of newer Indian curlers from India, not Native American curlers from India. Took a liking to Scott Burke because he is extra lovable. I mean, just look at him. I think he's extra lovable. They told him after one of his fine Burke-esque shots.
Hold on a sec. But why specifically Indians?
Why did the Indians love Scott Burke, or why were Indians
at
this
you
curling
could have said that everybody finds him especially
well, everybody does
lovable.
find him lovable, but the Indians were the most enthusiastic members of the fan club. They wrote a song to the tune of George of the Jungle, which was essentially every word in the song was Burke. After the, apparently in this D semifinal, a shake was rescinded. A concession handshake was rescinded so that Burke could throw one last rock. To chants of "We want Burke," he sent it in. It bounced off a number of things. The crowd went wild, and afterwards he was asked if they could pat his head and told him he had a strong curling aura.
Perfect. The many arms of Vishnu have blessed you.
Scott Burke, international man. I was asked by Joe Calabrese if Brian Gailbach is here. Do you remember Brian?
I I'm slightly after his time, so no, he's not here.
I don't see him in this event. I'm scanning for a beige members only jacket, but I do not see it.
That signature look.
I'm asked by Melinda if Johnson is sitting 3. Yeah, I think that's the case. They've got one kind of half on the house. The red in the back 12 is better than that, but probably not better than the yellow in the top. In fact, certainly not. Johnson closing the center once again. A really nice draw, nice rotation. Kind of fell right in where he wanted it. He's making eyes at his lead, which I think means he's recovered. He's in good spirits. He's put that deadly promote of the opposition stone behind him.
That 5 down to 2 under.
That was impressive. I wanted to call that one like the great Vic Router of TSN, where we're saying like touch the 12, touch the 8, touch the 4, except it was the opposition's rock. So I wasn't 100% sure how to handle it.
Yeah, you were calling like, no, they're promoted to the, wait.
And my count 'em up was going in the wrong direction. Normally Vic would say count 'em up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for Eric Johnson, but instead it was like, uh-oh, 5, 4, oh no, 3, 2. And Eric looks like he's fully recovered. He's completely in control of this, and by extension the game. Steven is peeling with a skip rock. It's the right thing to do, but it's a desperate feeling. You don't really want to be wasting your 7 on a peel when you're down by 4 points.
Oh, I've been there recently.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes you got to do it. It's the right call. I would say if it wasn't. People know I'm pretty outspoken and opinionated about
but I mean,
curling strategy.
You're still also counting on the opposing team not.
Well, that's right. But
not completing their final shot.
But make them do something. Again, I mean, that's kind of one of my core principles. Palka and Alessi sweeping hard. They've got the right alignment, but it looks like he's going to stuff this. He ran it directly back. Nothing really has changed except the color of the rock on the center line. Eric Johnson now at this point, it's one of those instances of like, what else do I really need to do here?
He probably wants to cover up the run back opportunity right on the center line. No.
You're right, but it's
a long ways, but there are some catcher rocks.
Yeah, it's a low percentage shot. It's for 1 point. It is fine. It's
what else? I mean, that's the easiest shot, right?
You're right, and it's not easy.
No, it's not. A lot of rocks in play here.
Certainly are.
All but 1 rock on each team in play right now.
And generally that suits Skip Stephen-Hours from the Curling Club of Virginia being down 4 points. You would think Eric Johnson would be having a heart attack looking at all these rocks in play with his lead, but it's really kind of worked out for him. He takes the long slide back to the hack, confers with his team, does the hand alignment. I love it. I love to see people line up their hack toe, their hack knee with the shot before they crouch down. Eric Johnson from Akron, Ohio, possibly for the last time tonight.
He is curling a lot.
Hartsock was on it for a minute. Cauley was on it for a minute. They're thinking about it. I think they're just going to do the old over and up. You know, don't have it curl any more than it's going to. It's actually going to stagger, which is even better. I mean, it's not like it's any sort of fully loaded situation. They've created bad angle for the run back.
I think there's just a draw now, no? Draw through a narrow port.
Yeah, that's it. It's the intern draw for 1 through a port that's 1 3/4 stones wide. It's there.
It's there.
And the backing is in their favor.
It is, but it's
again,
kind of
this is a game extension shot. This is not really where they want to be. This is that deep breath slide back to the hack. Skip Stephen-Hours, very different than Eric Johnson's.
Make or break pretty much at this point.
At this point, you got to take a deep breath. You just got to think about your target slide. You don't want to overslide. You want to give your sweepers a chance. But you really don't want to come up short here. There's a name for coming up short, too. I mean, Burking is apparently bouncing off a lot of rocks, and up north, people know very well what the name is for coming up short on a must-have draw or even a draw to tack on extra points. This looks pretty solid. You can't see it on the screen. They're about to come into view. The line is pretty reasonable. It's really a matter of weight at this point. They are through the gap.
They
look
are.
like they have enough. Touch the 12. Touch the 8. Get to the 4. On top of the button. Skip Stephen Hours has prolonged this game. We are going to go to a 7th end. 5-2 Eric Johnson after 6. We're back after that bit of excitement. Lead BJ Pulse about to lead off the 7th end for the Curling Club of Virginia, who have new life because Skip Eric Hours channeled some of that junior experience. He spent 8 years here at Potomac as a junior before moving to Richmond, and he looked like a pro on that one. He took a deep breath, and he just dropped it right in there. Used the backing effectively.
You know what I'm seeing? I'm seeing a bit of a curling aura.
I know. Perhaps the aura has transferred from Vice Scott Burke to Skip Stephen Hours. Perhaps the fan club.
Maybe they should come over here and check it out.
Well, I believe they live in New York. It'll be a bit of a haul at this point.
Well,
but they should be watching, and they should be checking out the live tweeting going on at @GetBurked. That's at GETBURKD. Boy, the center guard really didn't get over to where they wanted. I mean, it's
almost a corner guard.
Yeah, I mean, it's acceptable in the 4-foot lane, but they're going to need another one. It's going to be really hard to steal on the side 8s. Well, side 4, side 8, it's possible, but I mean, what does the math look like at this point? We're talking about steal 2, steal 1. Oh, it would be nice if I took the scoreboard off of the screen. There you go. Dave Bykowski chimes in with a great shot. Dave Bykowski I've seen make many a great shot on this ice and at the ice up at Nutmeg where he moved to. It was part of a large, complicated trade that sent Mike Kriz to Potomac, Dave Bykowski to Nutmeg, Andy Eaton up to Rochester, and myself down south here to Potomac. I think I was the player to be named later. I think I was the last one to move.
Right. Plus a first-round draft pick.
And we're not sure who that's going to be used on yet. We have to scout the learn to curls, I think.
Exactly.
Sorry, Melinda. Yeah, boy, the last shot was so exciting. We left the scoreboard on a little bit too long, but we're back here. This red center guard looks a lot better. I mean, it's going to overcurl. It's going to tuck behind the other, but it gives them a stagger. It gives them a little bit more of that 4-foot lane, and that's adequate to steal. I talk about skips who guard things that are in the top 12, and I say, I don't think you're going to last the whole end and steal on the top 12. You could totally steal on the side 4, especially at this level. You get a couple overthrows on some hits, and you'll get there.
And if you can master the art of the low handle rock, tuck one behind.
Well, you don't necessarily need low handle. You'll still get a 4-foot curl out of these brand new rocks with a 2.5 to 3 rotation. Well, Steven gets a gift there. A little bit of a rub from Eric Sleed Malcauley, and he's going to go straight into the house. He could consider one more center guard. He's going to go straight in, and I would expect if Christina Alessi executes this well in the sweepers, if the Scott Burke of Ardsley fame, and if BJ Palsa can guide it there, I would expect Eric Johnson to start the peels.
Bring on the pain. Oh, but I think this rock is hanging out there and not coming back.
No, this is quite wide. They're about to enter your frame. They may not get over the hog line, and I don't think they will. This is interesting now at this stage of the game. So Eric Johnson told me pregame that his strategy was to play finesse, to play aggressive. whereas Stephen Hour said they really needed to hit in general because of their arena ice disadvantage. But now it's sort of incumbent upon Eric to play defense with a 5-2 lead, and he's not. He's absolutely not. He is asking Andy Hartzig, who was here in March for the Cherry Blossom Bonspiel. I played against Eric and Andy in our first game. He's asking Andy to
basically the same shot.
Kind of put their foot on their throats a little bit here. This is, and that's a common misconception in curling. The big hit, you know, it's a loud shot, right? And people say, oh, that's an aggressive play, but it's not really. It's totally a defensive play. To be aggressive in curling is to have a real finesse game, to be confident in your ability to tuck rocks behind others, to play tap-ups.
I mean, guarding is considered a very offensive move.
Absolutely. And generally, when you are up by 3 or more without the hammer, a guard is a little counterproductive. You're generally happy to let the other team score, let the clock run out, as it were. I mean, the clock in curling is much like the clock in baseball. It's a little amorphous, but, you know, metaphorically it exists. You give up a point, and now they find themselves later in the game and not that much closer. Christine Alessi's out-turn draw just seems like it's got a little too much sauce on it. Eric Johnson gives it a token brush as it flies out the back. Joe Calabrese has another question. Little Joey is just full of inquiry tonight up there in Fairport. He says, Bob, what's your favorite poutine place in Montreal? And that is a no-brainer. That is La Banquise, qui se trouve à Rue Rachel, tout près de l'Avenue Saint-Denis. They have quite an array of options. I tend to get the three amigos, trois amigos. Amigo is not really French anyway, which contains 3 different kinds of sausage, including Breguet sausage, which is very interesting. I've been told by Rochester area food critics that La Banquise doesn't stack up to the poutine food truck that drives around town, but I can't take that opinion seriously. And as for my favorite roast beef place in Boston, that would be Brothers. Roast beef holds a special place in the pantheon of curling. If you are in
Is that true?
Yes, it is. If you are in a all-weekend event and you have a lot of 10-in games to play, you want something that's hearty, protein-filled, but not going to give you heartburn. And so you go to Brothers in Brookline, which is not far from the country club, a fine place to play, and you get their just plain roast beef sandwich, and you feel energized for subsequent draws. When you've got to dig deep, find a little bit more to get you through that 9th end, that 10th end, your triceps are aching, you go to Brothers.
I see. I mean, apparently you have a strong relationship with Brothers.
Well, to further elucidate, when we were there in Boston, I think I had Brothers after 3 out of 4 games. Red has managed to get behind. They're probably more than half buried because I'm looking at it from a little bit of a skewed vantage point.
Completely buried, yep.
Yeah, especially for right-handers. We have no lefties in this game. There is no one like Jamichael Kriz to kind of come out of that opposite hack with a little easier in-turn look. And so Red is about halfway there to where they need to get in this end. I mean, they're probably, she can probably see a quarter rock from the hack. The problem is, where exactly does Red hide another one with that yellow that's just off center line? Eric Johnson's going to attack this one, and I kind of like the way he's going about it. He's going about it, if that's hit weight, it's pretty light hit weight, and if it's not a big deal. As long as he draws down to it.
I think it's not coming back, though.
It becomes that theme that we've talked about previously about shrinking the scoring area. If he can touch any of the 8-foot with this rock, and they're sweeping really hard. Andy Hartzig is working trying to drag this thing. They're going to come up short, but one, they've closed that draw lane off. If they got a little bit further and they corner froze on the Red, Red would need full 8-foot or better to score its second. Generally, you don't talk about shrinking the scoring area on the non-hammer team, but in this instance, they're the ones who need the big comeback. I'm not sure this is the safest way to go here for Stephen Hours. This could end up inadvertently tapping yellow back to a position they don't want to be. If they can get a little more curl out of this, maybe they push one of those red guards back, but I suspect they're going to
There's going to be some
tick and
crashing going on.
Yeah, tick and roll out, and that's really not strong for them. It gives Katie McCartney a better look here in the hack. Now I bet she has 40% of the rock.
I'm not sure about that. To me, it looks pretty well full buried.
Eric Johnson's still going in there, and I still think that's the right thing to do. I think if they get around that high red, they can get all the way to the nose of the back red, and I don't see how red scores more than a point. Eric Johnson comes back up 2 with the hammer in the 8th end. Now, I hope he tries to keep it a little cleaner next time, but this looks real light. Hartzig and Cauley were on it about 15 feet beyond the hog line. They've come up. They're getting back down. This is an end-to-end just to get a 1-2. I mean, they've closed that gap, but I'm not sure that gap was their biggest problem. They really wanted to get in there.
But he would almost be happy to give up one more.
Right. All right. Come home in the 8th end with the hammer.
With the hammer.
Like I said, I hope he eschews any sort of corner guard play and
I like the choice of vocabulary, eschews.
gets to the edges. Yeah, I have all the best words. They're really the best.
Yeah.
They're tremendous.
Tremendous. Everybody else is sad. It's kind of late in the game. Do you think they should try to open up something in the middle?
Yeah, I mean, well, open in the middle is not how you steal in general. This looks tricky. I'm not 100% sure what the thought is. I think they're hoping they can curl enough to promote the red that's just off of center. And I like the general idea. I think it's a little too much ice, if that's the call.
Yeah. Also, I'm not sure about the angle there.
I think with the late finish on the rocks, as long as he throws something like hack board, he should be all right. That's one thing I wanted to touch on earlier in the broadcast is that it's a little bit of a misconception that to promote a rock to T-line, you throw T-line for a couple of reasons. If you're anywhere off, yeah, I mean, this is going to promote yellow in inadvertently. If you're anywhere off the line, you don't have as much energy flowing into the rock that you hit as you anticipated. So if you hit a rock at a 45-degree angle with hack weight, you're only going to push it to maybe the T line, depending on where it was to start. The other factor here, and I don't think this is fully appreciated a lot of the time, is it really depends on when that rock came to rest in the end. If you're talking about promoting up a lead rock that's been sitting there for 10 to 15 minutes, you need to add another elasticity factor into...
It's the coefficient of static friction is what you're talking about.
I'm being corrected by a true physicist. I'm a fraud who took some physics for his engineering degree, but
it's also called stiction.
Tried to forget about it. But it's really a true thing that you need to throw a little extra to dislodge a rock that's been out there a long time. Much like when you clean up your rocks at the end of the end, you'll feel some of them are stuck. You got to give them a little bit more of a kick. Eric Johnson really now just kind of
add to the pile, maybe?
Closing the door here. I mean, whatever the door is. The door, I suppose, is a direct run back on the red rock that promoted the yellow rock to the 4-foot. Eric Johnson has a really nice guard approach. He doesn't overslide. Oh, this one's taken a hard right turn.
And I also think it's a little
largely lost the handle.
Oh, it's reversed again, though.
Yeah, this was an under-rotated stone, and this is what will happen. You can't really see any of it, folks. He came out maybe about 10 to 15 feet out of his hand. It took a hard right toward the center line. When it got to the center line, all handle was off. It sort of started to become a counterclockwise rotation rock. And another thing about low rotation stones is they are hard to drag. They are fighting forward movement with their running surfaces as opposed to like gearing on the ice with the running surface and just creating curl. So Eric Johnson hogs his second to last rock. But the way things are going, unless Skip Stephen-Hours can really make a perfect run back here, Eric Johnson may not have to throw his final rock. Stephen hoping for either plan A here or a Burke. A Burke would totally work in this situation if he were to hit a little bit off the nose to the intern side, drive it back into his red, flop it over into the yellow. There's all sorts of possibilities, but they are all not high percentage. They're given about 2 feet of ice. He's throwing roughly hack. Seems reasonable.
No, I think it's...
Pressure's on immediately. I'm not sure he got all the way out to the target. This thing's really turning on them. It's touching center. Here they come into view.
There's another red rock.
They're going to hit a red rock. It is not the right red rock. Eric Johnson can conceivably throw an intern through that gap and get a 2. I think they're discussing throwing it away, and I think the way the CCVA players are looking at each other, they're anticipating a handshake.
After that 5th end, maybe you hesitate a little bit before trying to be greedy, right?
All right. That 5th end, Eric Johnson, or was it, which end? He scored 2 in the 5th end, right? I don't see, though, even like being greedy and making a mistake here, how you don't score. I think if you are greedy and make a mistake here, you probably just wreck and score a point. So he's trying for it. He's doing exactly what we're talking about. You can sort of throw a back 4 kind of weight at this thing, maybe a back 8, and even if you touch that red, you probably roll 2 shot while it gets pushed over further in the 8 foot. I think you can't really get over the nose of it to promote it to the button and give up this point, so why not go for it?
Low pressure shot, though.
In general, I mean, there doesn't seem to be a way you can really destroy this thing. So once again, from the Columbus Curling Club in Columbus, Ohio, Eric Johnson. Not Eric Johnson, who plays the guitar and did Cliffs of Dover. Hartzig and Cauley on before the halfway point. Crossing center right now. They are going to have to contend with the high red guard. They are almost by. They're by. They are going to hit exactly the rock I was talking about. They're going to flop to the 4 foot. It's now a 3 in play. I mean, even at draw weight, you were thinking that's just a hit flop for 2. They're going to get 3 out of it, and here come the handshakes. I think. Some people are shaking hands. The skips are talking. now everybody's shaking hands.
This may be a disagreement. We're going to need a contract before we shake on this one.
And so that'll do it from our feature game, our B event semifinal. That was Team Eric Johnson over Team Stephen-Hours. Eric Johnson's team, a Columbus-Charlottesville hybrid. The opposition, Team Stephen-Hours from Richmond, Virginia. Quick update on other sheets. Andy Inglis has scored a 3 in the 7th end to take a 5-4 lead over Alan McLean. Alan coming back home with hammer in the 8th end. He has a rock on the 4 foot. Yellow has the corner guard, which is a little mysterious. Over on sheet D, they're also playing the 8th end. The 7th end has not been hung yet. Michael Dobbs was trailing after 6, 5-4 to Nick Smith. I will let you know as soon as they hang whatever was up in 7. Well, let's see who shot first. So yellow shot first, which means Dobbs scored in the 7th. So he may, in fact, be winning. We don't know yet. On sheet C, a game we have not talked about tonight. I have it here on the paper. We've got Travis Hamilton from the Curling Club of Virginia versus Martin Wyatt from the Chesapeake Club. It looks like Wyatt is about to throw his first skip rock in 7, ahead 6-5 without the hammer.
Bob, I'm going to have to take a little relaxation break. I'll be playing in a short while, and I'll sign off now.
Well, thank you for joining me, Craig.
Well, it's been great calling game with you.
Indeed.
Take care.
Way
Bye-bye.
better than if Gilad Kempanish was here.
Oh, my gosh. Take care. Goodbye. Everybody out in the world, enjoy the rest of the tournament.
Okay, curling fans in the U.S., I'm going to stay with you because it seems like we have Melinda Carlson here is very interested in the game on sheet D, and I believe someone earlier was very interested in the game on sheet A with Alan. I apologize that I don't know how to work all these pan-zoom situations. Gina, yes, right. I will try to describe what's going on sheet A. It'll be a little more like radio. I have a lot of curlers in my way as they do their post-game thing on sheet B. It looks like Andy Inglis's yellow rock is now on the 4-foot, so they must have made some sort of takeout on Allen's. The end is pretty open. There is one corner guard in play. Yellow throwing another solid, like, control plus hit. They spilled it back 12, but I don't think they're terribly concerned, so they sit 2. Allen's got to consider exactly how he's going to get under cover on the corner. Allen is on his 5th rock at this point, so it is, I don't know the fellow's name. He's another stick thrower. On sheet D, Mark Carlson is in the hack. So the Team Dobbs did get 2 in the 7th. They are ahead 6-5 without the hammer coming back. Michael Dobbs is asking Mark to hit a rock on side 8. Dobbs already has one in back 12. There are 2 guards in play. There's a yellow guard on the center line. There's a red corner guard that is pretty close to the house and pretty far out, guarding more the 12-foot than the 8. Yeah, I kind of figured, Gina. Mark clips that guard that I talked about originally, that sort of close to the house red guard. His rock very slowly goes through the entirety of the house. Nick Smith now is sitting 1 in the side 8. He's conferring with top vice Courtney Shaw on the right call here. They're going to try to corner guard theirs in the 8. There's some safety in that as you go. I mean, if you can draw into sit 2, but yellow will have runbacks. Guarding this one now means the opposition will need to waste 2 rocks to eventually get you out. Both of these games, however, could be headed to extra ends. Back on sheet A, Team Andy Inglis. These guys swept the shot to a biter on the top 12, but Allen has a rock half on the side 12. Andy is still shot rock in the back 12, and so now the 6th rock for Allen is on its way. It looks like he's, sorry, hang on. Looks like he's calling a draw. Actually, this has got a lot more than a draw on it. This is hack plus. It's coming to the center line. It's probably going to take the yellow off the back 12. So now Allen is sitting 2. The problem is both are behind T, and one is a side biter. I mean, side biter can come into play as sort of a force multiplier, but I think Allen's going to win or lose the end in the 4-foot. I think, so Andy's consulting with AJ Oyer. They're talking about a draw. That's a very aggressive play here, but being the team without hammer in the 8th end up 1, you really got to play for the steal. Looking back to sheet D, and this is becoming quite the interesting broadcasting experience. Team Dobbs has a shot in the side 4, slightly behind T. Nick Smith is lining up to hit and roll to the center, which I think, if they execute it perfectly, will double the other yellow rock out of the back 12. It is, in fact, I don't know who it is. Courtney Shaw and Laura Yee are the sweepers. I don't know who the other player is delivering right now. Let's see, I can find out. Oh, it's Julia DiBaggio. Doesn't look like they did the job as I look back at the ice. I feel like a guard is missing, but Michael is still sitting 1 and 2, 1 in the kind of back corner 4 and 2 in the full back 12. Andy Inglis is throwing his first rock of the 8th end on sheet A. This time it doesn't look like they're, well, no, it does look like they're drawn. I thought they weren't going to mess around and just get rid of Allen's shot rock, but they're playing aggressive. They're going to go for all of it. They've got Joe Morrison on one brush. They've got Ben Keene on the other. And they're only going to leave a center line guard, but that might not be the end of the world for them. But Andy's only got one more crack at a draw, like a knockout draw against Allen. Allen's consulting his vice right now. They're thinking about beating him to the punch to get to that 8-foot spot and bury first. And then what does Andy do to out-count? I think it's probably a decent idea for Allen as long as he's really, really got to stay above T. Can't afford to go deep. You hear Courtney Shaw screaming on D. They're calling for a sweep. I thought they were going after shot rock, but it looks like maybe they're just sweeping to get the right kind of peel action. They didn't even get that. They kind of nosed it. Courtney looks disappointed. I think Michael's buried, but the guards on sheet D are really, really high. Like, I feel like you can definitely get around them at even control, probably. But Michael, you know, he's not totally sure, it seems, if he's going to steal on that backside 4. I think he's debating between closing a draw lane or just getting another rock in. I think he's going to try and put another rock in, which is reasonable. They're a little earlier in the end. This is Mike Sell's second rock, which means Nick Smith will still have 3 to go after this. Okay, Allen's in the hack. He's got the stick at the ready. I believe they're going to try that, beat them at their own game draw play. Mike Jones, the man who introduced me to Crabtown, is on the broom. Mike Jones took a really bad fall real early in the year at a practice session, and it's good to see that he's back up. Looks like Dan Kennedy, the other one on the brush. They rubbed the center guard going by, and they don't quite have enough energy to get into the house. So I think there's a weird staggering of guards here, such that the port isn't really natural for Andy Inglis to try to draw in and out count. And they as he consults with AJ Oyer, it doesn't look like he wants to tempt that and possibly wreck on the red and promote him in for 2 and give Allen, well, Allen's already sitting 2, but you know, promote him in for 3 and game over. They're talking about tapping up a yellow rock that's sort of a center guard, but it's extremely close to the house. It may even be a biter, and it's off center by, I don't know, 9-10 inches, maybe a solid foot. On sheet D, Nick Smith just threw another quasi-peel. I mean, he moved a rock over. His own shooter went toward the wall, but is not really totally out. And I feel like the rock he moved over actually just took away all out-turn draws for Courtney. I mean, the team is called Smith, but I'm starting to understand that Courtney is really running the show. It looks like Dobbs is going to just throw in-turn draw from the other side and potentially sit 3. Even if he comes up short, he cuts off another draw lane and is in really, really strong steal position. Here we go. This is Andy Inglis. Oh, he's left-handed. Look at that. So he's going to have to get out over center a little bit more than the average player. He's throwing a promote. Seems like it has plenty of weight. It doesn't seem like it's very far off the center in terms of tapping this thing directly back toward the center of the ice. It's looking better as it comes in. Boy, it's kind of hot. It's tapped the yellow stone, and it is shot rock. It comes to rest maybe 3 inches better than Allen's best. But I think because it was hit at such an oblique angle, Allen is going to look at it. I think he is going to have a board weight hit on it. And as long as he makes it go away, he doesn't even have to stick around. He can even afford to lose his rock in the back of the house. He'll probably win the game. Boy, yeah, it's definitely Courtney. Okay, I saw Lori Yee in the hack, but she was just cleaning the rock and getting things ready. Courtney looks like she's going to try to thread the needle with something control or slightly down to get Dobbs off of the forefoot. If she can stick around the house, she'll be in a really, really solid position. But they need to score 2, and they really only have her 2 rocks left. Allen is approaching the hog line. This thing has some serious speed. Allen is not messing around. He's called them to sweep right out of his hand. You can hear him. Kennedy and Jones brushing hard. They think they're by. Allen doesn't look happy for whatever reason, but he got it. Perhaps that was more of a celebratory arm wave. But Allen McNeil wins on sheet A by the final score of 7-5. Courtney's rock's on the way. It's way down from what I thought they were trying to do with it. It's probably like back 8 way. No, it's not even. It's more of a freeze, and they got there, and they R-shot rock, but they did not move the yellow at all, and their scoring area is now really the size of the button to score a second. I mean, they can touch the forefoot anywhere, but I'm not sure if they can get to the forefoot with an in-turn draw. They may be able to. And so now Dobbs is only, well, it's not his only option, and it's not, doesn't particularly get him where he wants to be. He's thinking about threading the needle with a little more weight. I mean, Courtney showed that you could get there fairly down. They're going to have a talk about it. They're going to talk about sitting on top of it and just not giving up a 2 and going to an extra end. They're given roughly the same ice as Courtney, so I think that's the decision. The idea is, okay, squeeze it off and let's play 9 kind of thing. On the screen, you see Melvin Shaw mopping the ice. Melvin Shaw from Wilkes-Barre, PA. He and I are the 2 Northeast Pennsylvania curlers, I think, in the world, other than those who play at the Arena Club in Wilkes-Barre. Melvin has become a top ice technician after the debacle at Club Playdowns 3 years ago with flat ice. They've really taken things up a notch as I've been here. I've noticed ice conditions more and more consistent and improving. And Melvin's a big reason why. I think if I ever do this again, I will probably bring some water and a Jolly Rancher or 2, because you can probably hear him running out of throat. But we only have 2 rocks left in the 8th end on sheet D. And if we do go to an extra end, I'll go and grab something to drink and come back and bring you the 9th end as best I can. Dobbs slides, he calls hack. That's his estimate of how hard they threw. They got Mark Carlson hard on the brush. Mark Carlson with his orange Converse curling shoes. I like it. They're through the gap. They're calling off. In fact, if they had gotten more to the nose there, they could have potentially squirted the red through the back of the forefoot. As is, red stays essentially back corner button, and yellow looks like it's covering a lot of the button, but Courtney has all of the center line to work with. The port is more unnatural now, but I think it's definitely there, and it's actually a shot for the win. If she can curl up 6-7 inches and hit this thing nose, I think even if it rubs the red on its way by, they probably stay and score 2 and win the game. So this is what it'll come down to. Thank you, Melinda. See, that's the kind of backstory we can only get in this curling webcasting community. They look like Chuck Taylor All-Stars. They kind of have like a high top thing to them. And thank you, Dave. Very kind words. Probably completely false, but appreciate it. For old time's sake, we could do the scoreboard right for once. It's actually a tricky process. You wouldn't think so, but. Oh! So Courtney rubs the yellow guard, which is the deeper guard, on the way by. And rather than hitting the yellow, hit her own red out the back. She stays side 4, but unfortunately the Dobstone maybe only moved a centimeter. Stays on the button, and Michael Dobbs with Mark Carlson and his #1 fan are moving on to the A final tomorrow morning, and they will face Alan McNeil. I believe that game's a little bit later than some A finals. I'll be scraping in the morning, but I didn't think I was getting up super early, so I think noon for that. Let me really quickly look at this bracket. Yep, noon here on sheet B. Someone will be calling the game. I don't think it'll be me, but it'll be Dobbs versus McNeil for all the marbles in the 3rd annual Embassy Row Bonspiel. Theme South Korea this year. So that's it for me. I am going to go help out with the pebbling and nipping again. I believe Alan McNeil will be calling the next game. I will be with him, perhaps. We'll see. But thank you again. Thanks for sticking with me, and have a good night, curling fans in the United States, Canada, and possibly Newfoundland.
Oh, I like to see.
What do I press?
The camera
whatever looks like a camera.
Doubt or mystery.
I don't know. I just got this week.
As well.
Nice.
Yeah, awesome. Oh my gosh. All right, please get up though. Are you all right? Yeah. Don't want you.
I'll wait for the next picture.
All right. You want to take another picture?
Yeah. This thing? The starting block? Don't do the slide. Like the way it's like. How do I do it?
I don't know.
All right, so.
Greg, we're playing on this sheet.
Oh, yeah.
You should probably do that one. You can throw it on that.
Which one?